been a while since we talked about OnePlus. They've always been about speed, both in performance and software. Back in 2014, they were killing it with the OnePlus One. It was an invite-only system that made owning the OnePlus One feel exclusive, and it ran CyanogenMod, which gave users all sorts of customization and solid performance. Then came the signature alert slider with the OnePlus 2, a simple yet iconic feature that still to this date sets OnePlus apart. They were once the flagship killers, fast, affordable, and offering one of the best software experiences at a great price. But after Carl Pei left, things changed. Prices soared, the software stumbled, and their identity sort of started to fade away. They were hitting a rough patch, and perhaps it could have been a new management, or maybe it was the growing influence of their parent company, BBK Electronics. As OnePlus became more intertwined with Oppo, their once distinct software and hardware started to blend in, and I think that change it definitely took a hit on the identity. But then came the OnePlus Open, which I think is a bold move in the foldable market, and arguably it is one of the best out there. Unfortunately, they won't be a success this year, or maybe there will be, I'm not sure. But fast forward to today, and the OnePlus 13 is quickly becoming the talk of the town. It's chasing high-end premium features found in $1,200 to $1,500 flagships, but packing them into a phone that starts at just $899. Yes, that's still expensive, but recently, after reviewing the Pixel 9 series, which boasts great hardware, its steep price and the software experience left me wanting more. So after migrating to the OnePlus 13, I'm not just rediscovering what I loved about OnePlus, but I'm actually starting to fall in love with Android all over again. Now, OnePlus, Oppo, and Realme all share a similar software foundation, but Oxygen OS 15 still manages to feel somewhat distinct. The first thing I noticed is just how fast this phone is. Paired with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 Elite, this phone feels incredibly fluid. There's no lag, no stutter, it's just pure speed. All of my third-party apps work smoothly without any issues, and compared to my Pixel 9 Pro, there is just no competition. It's just a reminder of how much software optimization paired with the right chip can elevate the user experience. There's tons of customization. You can tweak everything from the icon shapes and app drawer layouts to the fingerprint animations on the lock screen. It gives you that classic Android flexibility that Pixel seems to be moving away from. The shelf feature is an interesting addition, but the default gesture to access it keeps getting mixed up with notifications. Thankfully, you can go into the home and lock screen settings and switch the swipe down action to the notifications and quick settings option, which again makes way more sense. Speaking of the quick settings tray, I absolutely love this layout. Everything you need is right there at your fingertips. There's no need to scroll through endless pages to find quick toggles to change the Wi-Fi, access locations, enable your mobile data. Everything you need is right there at your fingertips. And if you swipe right, boom, all your notifications are right there. And I love the separation. Live Alerts, or Fluid Cloud, which OnePlus calls, is clearly inspired by Apple's Dynamic Island. And I actually kind of like this, especially for Spotify's music controls. But beyond that, it feels limited. There's no support for apps like Uber, YouTube Music, or even the timer. Hopefully future updates expand its functionality, but overall transferring apps from my Pixel 9 Pro to the OnePlus 13 was a pretty smooth experience, though it did install a second calculator, a clock, and a few redundant Google apps like Pixel Buds and News, which I had to go back to the phone and just get rid of. OnePlus also packs a few extra features. Some of them are questionable. For example, there's Zen Space, which is essentially sort of like focus mode for iOS, and it's designed to help cut distractions and reduce screen time. Then there's the OnePlus Store and an internet browser, which feels a bit unnecessary. Do we really need another web browser? Although I do like the integrated IR remote feature. It lets you control your TV, soundbars, and other appliances, making it surprisingly handy. I even saw a Reddit post the other day where someone used it to secretly tweak the thermostat at their gym. Talk about a true power move. There's also file sharing with iPhone. Now, on paper, it's great. It helped me transfer content from my iPhone 16 Pro to the OnePlus 13 for social posts. But it's turned off by default, and it's buried deeply into the settings. Once you enable it, you actually have to install the O+ Connect app on your iPhone, grant it permissions, and then it connects to a temporary Wi-Fi hotspot that's created by the 13. And it works, but there's just a lot of friction to set it up. I don't think something like this would fly with your friends who have an iPhone and if you want to share content, but I do applaud OnePlus for attempting to bridge the gap between the ecosystems. Now, there are some useful tools to improve multitasking. Split View is a handy feature that lets you run 2 apps side by side, and you can drag the divider even further to prioritize one app while keeping the other sort of minimized for quick access. I've actually been using this to browse Reddit recommendations for restaurants while keeping Google Maps open. It's actually pretty useful. You can even swap apps within this layout, which makes multitasking feel effortless. But not all apps support split view. For example, Instagram still refuses to work in this mode. And just like every other smartphone manufacturer, OnePlus has AI integrated into Oxygen OS. And from my experience, it's been a mixed bag, but mostly positive. The smart sidebar allows AI to scan your screen and it summarizes articles, which is a cool concept, and it works pretty well. And it also can generate quick message replies with different tones. However, there are other AI-powered enhancements that feel more like marketing fluff than game-changing tools. AI Detail Boost, for example, it attempts to restore cropped images without pixelation. But in my tests, the results look more like a watercolor painting than a proper enhancement, so it's not very useful. Then there's AI on Blur, which kind of works in some cases to restore blurry images, but then Google Photos' Magic Eraser already offers a similar functionality. AI Notes is pretty cool. It can tweak the tone, clean up your messy notes, and it can continue to write for you. I actually tested this with the chaotic notes that I had from an ASUS briefing that I attended recently, and it somehow turned them into something more readable. Intelligent Search was a disappointment. I asked it simple questions like, how tall is the CN Tower? Or what's the fastest GPU out there? And instead of pulling a proper result, it ended up searching or performing a local search on my phone, and then it figured out something from my Notes app from the ASUS briefing that I had and surfaced random information about a laptop GPU. That's not how a global search function should work, but maybe they should just rename it to something local instead. You still get circular search, and Gemini is built into the phone as well, which is great. And OnePlus is rolling out updates, up to 4 years of OS updates and 6 years of security updates, which is kind of odd because Google and Samsung now promise 7 years of updates. Then again, Samsung still hasn't rolled out One UI 7 to last year's S24 Ultra, so maybe we should start holding companies accountable for their promises. Okay, let's talk hardware and design. This thing, it's big, like really big. It's got a 6.8-inch display that curves around the flat frame, and it's still pretty comfortable to hold, but at 210 grams, it's got some serious weight to it. So if you're doom scrolling in bed and it slips from hand fatigue, let's just say it won't be fun. But I like the fact that they've still implemented the alert slider on the side, and there's a visual cue by the front-facing camera cutout that indicates the current status of your phone. They've switched the materials on the back, so this model over here has a soft microfiber vegan leather back instead of the usual glass backs that we're used to seeing. They do offer other color options with different textures, which I think is pretty cool. It is a refreshing change from what we're used to seeing, and if you're into cases, I have to say the OnePlus magnetic accessories are pretty cool. So this is the Aramid fiber case. It features a magnetic ring at the back, and it surprisingly works with MagSafe accessories, like everything that I have at home, which is a huge incentive for those thinking about switching from an iPhone. The only downside is that this case, it just picks up all sorts of fingerprints, and cleaning it isn't the easiest. It still leaves some residue behind. But if we switch gears to the display, it's sharp, it's vivid, it's smooth. We're looking at a Quad HD Plus 120Hz AMOLED panel that's super bright for outdoor use as well. It also came with a screen protector installed, but I removed it right away. But here's something that I recently learned about displays, and that's PWM sensitivity. Now, this is very hard to diagnose, and it's one of those factors that could be contributing to eye strain or headaches after staring at a screen for too long. Now, PWM, or pulse width modulation, basically controls the brightness output by rapidly flickering the screen on and off. It's a method used to retain the color profile of these OLED displays compared to standard DC dimming on LCD panels. Now, most people won't notice this with their naked eye, but if you're sensitive, it can be uncomfortable, and there's a huge community that's vocal about it. Now, OnePlus actually thought about this, and they integrated a hybrid dimming model to make things easier for your eyes. So at medium to high brightness, it uses DC dimming, which is sort of better for your eye comfort. And then at low brightness, it switches to 2160 Hz PWM dimming. It's a much higher flicker rate, and I tested it against my Pixel 9 Pro and my iPhone 16 Pro, which have 240 Hz and 480 Hz PWM, which is on the lower end of the spectrum. And the difference is noticeable. Those thicker black bars that you see indicate that the LEDs are turning on and off for longer. If you're not PWM sensitive, this won't mean much to you. In fact, I didn't experience any strain from testing either of these phones. But if you are experiencing head fatigue, eye strain, or any sort of stress from looking at your phone for long, then this is a thoughtful feature that OnePlus has included. They've also switched the fingerprint sensor from optical to ultrasonic, which also doesn't blind you at night when the screen is dim. And I've had no issues logging into the phone 90% of the time, but I have set up Face Unlock as a backup. Okay, so battery life on this thing, it is insane. I mean, I took this thing on a weekend cabin trip without a charger and had zero battery anxiety. That's how good it is. We're talking a 6,000 milliampere battery, and OnePlus, they're using a new silicone nanostack tech, which basically lets them cram in more energy density into a dual cell design. And the end result, easily over 2 days on a single charge with around 6 hours of screen on time. And of course, my mileage may vary from yours. So if you're a power user, this might be one of the longest lasting phones out there. And when you do need to charge, it's pretty fast. It supports 80-watt wired charging, and yes, thank you OnePlus for including a charger in the box. So you can juice it up, but also you can use it for your laptop or any other accessories that support USB as well. And it supports 50-watt wireless charging, which is faster than some of the phones that charge over a cable. The last thing to cover here is the camera performance, and I think it's a mixed bag with some highs. So they've packed a triple 50 megapixel setup into this phone. So you get a 50 megapixel ultra wide, 50 megapixel main, and a 50 megapixel telephoto. Not sure why everyone's going for a higher megapixel count. It doesn't really mean better photos, but it has it. And for the most part, photos straight out of the camera look solid with good dynamic range, natural colors, and plenty of detail. But sometimes the autofocus can be a hit or miss. As you can see in this shot over here, it refuses to focus on the screen. I also noticed that in low light scenarios, the camera struggles to compensate for flicker, and the images sometimes look a bit dull compared to the competition. That being said, when the sensor gets a ton of light, the results are fantastic across all three lenses, and you do end up with some really good images, especially with the telephoto camera. If you like macro photography, you're gonna love this thing. The level of detail is incredible. And for those who like to edit their photos, OnePlus lets you shoot in RAW. So the DNG files are around 30 to 35 megabytes each. So it gives you tons of flexibility in post-processing, especially in Adobe Lightroom, and it plays really well with those files. I did put it through its tests at the auto show here in Toronto, and I have to say, I was really impressed. There's a lot more detail compared to the compressed JPEG files, but let's be real, this isn't reaching Pixel or iPhone levels of processing. But it is less aggressive than the Galaxy S24 Ultra that I had last year. So while it's not the best camera system out there, it's certainly improving. And I think this could potentially be the partnership with Hasselblad. You know, it's probably going to start paying off. The camera app is super easy to navigate with all the essential settings right at your fingertips, like accessing burst mode, HDR. You can also change the aspect ratios. If you want to shoot in RAW, you'll have to scroll to the Master tab, switch from JPEG to RAW. It's something that I wish was set by default to save a few extra steps. The app also comes with a variety of fun shooting modes like time-lapse, document scanner, and a dual-view video mode, which combines the front-facing and rear-facing cameras to create a unique perspective. One of my favorite modes is the expand mode, which crops the sensor into a 65 by 25 ultra-wide aspect ratio. It's an homage to the classic Hasselblad expand camera, and I love experiencing this format for my storytelling. Okay, so this is a video test on the OnePlus 13. I'm shooting at 4K, 30 frames per second with ultra steady mode on, so you can see how the stabilization works. But I've also enabled a feature called sound focus, which is, again, deeply buried in the settings. So you can turn that on. It's an interesting test to see how it emphasizes my vocals. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm here at the well. It's kind of loud in here. Let's see how it goes. But let me know what you guys think about the quality. I think that the stabilization is pretty good, especially if you give a lot of light to the sensor. But in low light, it does struggle a lot. So when I tested this out at the auto show, there was a lot of noise with the footage, and it certainly doesn't match the iPhone level of video quality that you expect. So if you're strictly looking for a video camera on a smartphone, you should probably avoid this one. So it's pretty clear that OnePlus is pushing hard to compete at the flagship level. And Honestly, they've nailed a lot of things about this phone. The performance is top tier, the battery life is ridiculously good. I love the software experience and some of the cool features it brings to the table. And when you pair it with the right chip, the experience is awesome. And you also got this gorgeous display to look at. As for the cameras, if you're the type of person who likes to zoom in and nitpick every single detail, you might, and you most likely will find some flaws. But for most people who just want a solid camera that takes great photos, this gets the job done. Some of the AI features feel like gimmicks, but for $899, you're getting a phone that punches well above its class. It's a reality check for the competition, and if they keep refining what they've built here, they might be onto something special.